Hello, good evening, and welcome. You see, every nation, no matter how much you depend or rely or hope for foreign investors to come in and help you build your nation, within you must also do something. And it's advisable that maybe you do a greater percentage. How would you do that? You collect taxes from your citizens, and out of the taxes that you collect, you build hospitals, roads, and all the infrastructure that a nation would need. Now here we are. It's only the formal sector that keeps getting taxed and overtaxed and overtaxed. And we've heard this word so many times, it can now become the national pledge or the anthem. Broadening the tax next. Every government comes in and says, you know what, I'm going to broaden or widen the tax net. Is it ever going to happen? How is it going to happen? We don't have identities. People have duplicate identities. Every institution runs their own form of identity. How do we know that there's a child born in Sugankope today, or Kudikope, or even in Edumasa? How do we know? Because we don't even run a birth certificate system. However, somehow when that child turns 18 or 20, you need to track him down and collect taxes from him to build roads to go to him or his or her village. With me in the studio today is Richard Kwenu, who is a Principal Revenue Officer for Ghana Revenue Authority. And he has a magic wand. We're going to have a conversation and find out how is it possible that we rope everyone in to pay their penny or two to help the nation grow. My name is Nana Sakwa, and this is PM Express. Hello and welcome back. Broadening the tax base or the tax net, widening the tax net. With me to discuss this issue, problem, albatross round our neck is Mr. Richard Kwenu, who is a Principal Revenue Officer for Ghana Revenue Authority. So, he's in the know. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Now, my first question is, how do we rope in the informal sector?
Yeah. Maybe before I address that question, let's look at what has been the situation before the integration of Internal Revenue Service, and then the VAT service, and then the custom service. Mm-hmm. Before the integration, we had VAT existing on its own as an entity. We have IRS, and then we had custom service. With the integration, what is happening is that we have the operation division of IRS and then VAT coming together to become the domestic tax revenue division of GRA. And then we have the custom division still standing on its own. And whilst operating individually as IRS, VAT, and then customs, we realized that there were so many people who were outside the tax bracket. And how do we know about this? You can go to a taxpayer's premises, maybe as a VAT officer, and then you realize that your preoccupation is only on VAT services, the tax concerning VAT, input tax, and then output tax. You don't even concern yourself about the income tax. You have the other way around where you can have somebody from Internal Revenue Services visiting a taxpayer and then going through the taxpayer's books. His main concern is the income tax. And for that matter, what concerns VAT is not his problem at all. With the integration now, what happened is that any time that we have a team visiting a taxpayer, Then you have a combination of VAT official and then former internal revenue official coming together. To address the situation, what we did or what we have done so far is that we made sure that we did re-register all existing taxpayers and then gave them tax identification number. Previously, what happened is that if you are with IRS, you may have your number, and then somebody under VAT may have his number, and they can use the number separately to do transactions. But now, with the coming into existence of Ghana Revenue Authority, now you have one identification number, which you now use in all transactions, be it with GRA, Domestic Tax Revenue Division, or the Customs Division. Now, coming to your question, how do we rope in the informal sector? With the current system that we are running, we have...
Sorry, before you answer my question,
yeah.
Once you did the GRA integrated, all the tax elements,
yeah.
How much more percentage-wise did you see in terms of revenue collection? Did it go up by 10%, 20%? How much more did it go up?
Percentage-wise, I can't give figure, but we realized that we have actually plugged a lot of loophole that was existing in the previous system where we operated individually as separate entities.
So you were able to recoup more
yes,
money? Okay.
We were able to recoup more money. And now coming back to the question, now with GCNet, we've introduced a system known as the TRIPS, that's the Total Revenue Integration Processing System. With this, what happened is that we are using both the Act 546, that's the VAT Act, and then Act 592, that is the income tax law, to help us to give account to every taxpayer who we have now registered. So when you do any transaction anywhere, this transaction, once you are registered, will go into the system and it will be credited into an account. And now under 592, that's the Internal Revenue Act, when you transfer business with an entity, the entity is supposed to withhold if the amount is beyond 500 Ghana cedi now. The previous, maybe we'll say 5 million. The law says that you have to withhold 5%. And this 5% you are withholding from the person is supposed to be a tax credit for the person. But then when you withhold this thing and then give this money to Ghana Revenue Authority, we are now going to put it into the system. When we put into the system and you have registered with us, automatically an account has to pick this amount. But where you are not registered with us, it means that this amount will now go to a suspense account. So now what we'll do is that this person has not registered with us. So by that, now we know that maybe company A is doing transaction all over, but that company A has never registered with us, and then we'll try to track you down by knowing that you are not we are not in our books at all, so we can trace it.
Okay, let me break it down. So let's say that multimedia, we go and purchase cameras from a camera shop.
Yeah.
The camera guy holds back 5%. Mm-hmm. If at the end of the month, multimedia comes to pay their taxes, you will reduce by that 5% that has already...
Yes, it's a tax credit to you.
So once we are registered...
Yes, it will be credited into an account.
Okay.
So that amount is an advance tax payment that you have done. Once the person withholds from you, the person is supposed to pay that amount to Ghana Revenue Authority, and the person will be given a receipt. this receipt is not for him, but it's for you who that amount has been deducted from, and it serves as an advance tax credit for you. So when you file your returns, when you file your tax returns, and then we assess you all. Now, most companies, one thing I have to state here also is that now we want to make tax payment so flexible and at the convenience of the taxpayer. So we now even ask the companies to do tax assessment on their own, and then they file their returns. I don't know if the camera can pick. We have the returns form. This is for individuals.
Okay. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. This is the income tax form 21. This is for individuals. And all the time we've been saying that you have to file returns, you have to file returns. This is for the individuals. And then the center page, you have personal details. And these personal details, you have the person's surname, first name, other names, marital status. You have office address. And then you have the position, if an employee, name and address. And then if the person, aside or employment income, if the person is doing any other business or the person has other investment, all that one have to be stated. And then there are reliefs that are given. Relief that are given in case maybe you have assets which you have employed in the business, then we have to give you something called capital allowances. And then if you have done any insurance, then we'll have to give you allowance for that one. Then the social security, marriage responsibility, children's education, old age, all these things are reliefs. If you file returns, you are qualified for all these relief before the final tax assessment is done. Okay. And then we have that one for companies as well. And this is income tax form 22A, which this is supposed to be filed by companies.
If you just hold it in front of you, I'm sure they'll pick you up.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So I don't know whether, yeah. Yes. So this is for companies. Companies have a different returns. So this is income tax form 22A. And the one that I showed earlier is income tax form 21. And under the 22A, you have allowable deductions. You know, under the law, if you transfer business and then you have to pay taxes, there are certain deductions which we say are allowable. You are required by the law, or the law allows you to deduct all these expenses that are allowable to be taken out of whatever income that you have earned over the period before now you arrive at the your chargeable income. And we have the capital allowances also over here. And then in the center page, you have the name of the company, you have the location address, you have the telephone number, you have the postal address, branches, all, and then total number of shareholders. So this return is also required to be filed by companies. So if a company files these returns and then we assess you, once you have had that deduction from previous transaction that you have made, if we assess you and then we arrive at your tax liability, we are required to deduct this amount from the tax liability before you pay the net. So you might end up not having to pay tax at all by the time you put all these things in. Yes, it does happen. It does happen that there are instances where you have deductions suffer from all over, and when we aggregate all this, because when we say people should file returns, maybe they think that if they hide, it will be better for them. But under our law, if you are a taxpayer and you are doing business, you are supposed to register before you can do any transaction. If you do it, or you do business without registering with us, and then we get you, you either pay penalty or you can go to prison, or both. But most often we don't apply the law by maybe sending people to prison, but the fines they pay. So if you are doing any business in Ghana, the first thing you have to do is that you have to register with Ghana Revenue Authority before you can transact that business. And as I was saying, if various deductions are made from transactions that you have made, and then there are some relief that you are also to be given in terms of capital allowances and all that. So if we give you all this relief, it is possible that when we assess you, what has been deducted from your transaction will be more than the tax that you are supposed to pay. And so you can even get a refund, which is possible. And people do get the refund.
Really?
Yes.
I've never heard.
Oh, it exists.
It happens?
Yes.
I see. But I think you still haven't given me, this will all affect the formal sector.
Yes. So, yes, I was coming to the informal sector. We have this, I was saying, masons and all the. If you come under our law, what we did when IRS was on its own was to categorize certain taxpayers into classes. So we had dressmakers and then beauticians association. We had GPRTU and all those people. What happened was that they were giving some officers to be collecting valuables from the Internal Revenue Service and then account on weekly basis. But we realized that those officers who were appointed by their members were not accounting well. So an amendment was made. And what we said was that now we are bringing in something called VIT and then the tax stamp. So instead of maybe the taxpayers coming to our premises, what we normally do is that we have officers who are well-recognized jackets who now visit these taxpayers at the markets, corners, and things and collect taxes from them. But then, still, it is not enough. What we have been doing now is that recently we even relaunched the rent tax. We have people who now move from house to house, going to houses asking of the names of the landlords. But hitherto, some of these landlords have been around and they don't pay taxes at all. So they go from place to place, go to these landlords, and then ask who and who are staying in this house and how much rent do they pay. Because for each rent that any landlord pays, he's supposed to collect 8% as tax and then pay to Ghana Revenue Authority. All this one, for some time now, we have started doing this. And so I don't know where you stay, but you'll be seeing some gentlemen and ladies now all over going to places, making sure that all landlords who hitherto have been taking rent from their tenants have not been paying. All these landlords have now been brought into the book. And then when you go to these artisans and then other masons and maybe electricians who haven't had any maybe formal registration with us, what we now say is that if anybody does business with any entity, withhold. If you now withhold from the person, now we'll be able to enter the person's data into our system. So now the person will be captured. Under our law, you cannot be exempted unless the law exempts you. So once you are income earner in Ghana, you are required by law to pay tax unless you are exempted. So nobody can say that I'm a mason, maybe I'm an electrician, I'm a carpenter, I'm this, so I'm not supposed to pay taxes. No. All such classes of people are supposed to pay taxes. So once we cannot get them, if they do any transaction with you. It's the responsibility of all of us.
So what do I do if I drive and I buy, 2 coconuts and I say, well, I'm not going to give you the money, I'm withholding the money for the coconut?
You know what I said earlier? You as an individual, you cannot withhold. The law says a person, and a person here is a legal person, maybe a company, can withhold, but you an individual, you can't say that you are withholding from somebody. No, it's only a company that can withhold. So maybe if you go to a coconut seller and then you buy from a coconut seller, there's no way you can say you are withholding. No. You can't do that.
I mean, you see, I think the challenge you have is that because there's not a single identity, we have too many identities, so it makes it difficult for you to trace anybody. I mean, somebody could be driving in a different name, working in a different name, banking in a different name, going to hospital in a different name, so it makes it difficult for you to trace, the average citizen to find your money.
We accept that there is that challenge. That is the more reason why we are saying that each and every individual is supposed to obtain a tax identification number. Once you obtain a tax identification number as an individual, if you are to do any business, then that tax identification number is to be used. You see, where we haven't developed to a stage where maybe what would have solved the problem that we have at the moment would have been maybe the national identification card, where that one captures your data about your mother, where you come from and all that.
That would have made things simpler.
That would have made things simpler. But as at now, what we have done, or what we seek to do, is that every Ghanaian or every individual who is earning income of some sort is required to obtain tax identification number. So once you have this tax identification number and then you are doing any transaction, you are supposed to maybe be quoting this number. When you quote this number and then the number is quoted in any document that you have and then you do any transaction, then to be entered into our system, and then that one will help us to identify whether you have been paying taxes or not.
So we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we want to look at some of the challenges that even legal and willing citizens go through to pay their own taxes, and stories that we hear that, I pay a little bribe to pay my tax, or pay a little bribe to get my tax reduced. We'll come back right after the break.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome back. We're talking about broadening the tax net, and with me in the studio is Richard Quinn, who's been taking us through some of the forms that indeed as an individual or as a company you need to fill, some of the things that you need to declare, because indeed it makes you tax exempt, and maybe you might even be due for a refund because you paid too much taxes. So as responsible citizens, we need to cultivate that habit. But joining us on the phone now is Ali Nachia, who is a tax expert, to also explain. Okay, I think the line dropped there, so they were going to try and get him on the phone, and then we discuss further. But Richard, before we went on the break, I was talking about, he's back on the line. Okay, I've got him back now. Hello, Ali.
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Very good. We're looking at broadening the tax base or the tax net, which we've heard so many times. And indeed, it's not rocket science. We all know that to make any meaningful situation out of infrastructure, you need to put tax into a fund which the state will use. However, we have a very small formal sector and a very large informal sector, which indeed makes a lot of money. And we don't have a good identification system. So we're just trying to figure out, which is the way forward with this system that we're running. Do we just keep taxing the formal sector and hope that things change, or there's a silver bullet somewhere that's going to solve the issues?
Thank you very much. Talking about a silver bullet, I think the silver bullet is all hands should be on deck, because this is the one country we all have, and we have to all contribute in no small way to mobilizing domestic resources for our own development. I think that the informal sector can be grown or nurtured into a formal sector, because Ghana has made inroads. We have this vehicle income tax. We have the tax that some informal sectors like the beauticians, the tabletop traders, but how do we nurture them to formalize their operations so that they are brought into the fold of the formal sector? If we take the vehicle income tax, for example, operators of taxis, the minibuses, and then the long-distance buses, they pay according to their status. So if you say 15 Ghana cedis or 30 Ghana cedis a quarter, then for a taxi, for example, the question is, should they remain like that? Because income tax is tax on your income. And we can do a survey, and I'm sure we'll realize that on the average, a taxi in a location can make about 500 Ghana cedis a month. So times 3 will give us 1,500. Would the tax therefore be the 1530? So how do we nurture them up there? They will want to see something being done. The tax should be on the income of the owners of the vehicle, who the drivers will make sales to. So can we start capturing the car owner? I think every car has the address there, the name of the owner, the address, the telephone number. So we start building our base from there to get the vehicle owners, so we can start serving them assessments on their income. We can get interviews of the drivers. How much do you make a month? What is your sales? That is how to build the database. We had for some time been using before the transport union, GPRTU, who had booklets that they could take the taxes and remit to the GRA. But that became fraught with a lot of inefficiencies and lapses, and it was withdrawn. So can we study it and see how we could go back and roll out these to get them into a formalized structure? If we take the beauticians, they have associations, Ghana Beauticians and Hairdressers Association. Can we get them formalize it, and so that it's not per your saloon or your shop? Because somebody could operate for a whole quarter, and the money that person would make would not be enough to even buy the creams to be able to do another person's hair. But if you don't file returns or you don't keep records, definitely you can't convince a revenue officer that you are not making income. So I think that getting the informal sector into the formal sector is helping and nurturing them to know how to keep basic records, how to get returns made to the revenue. We have to simplify some of our processes, and then let it be appealing to them to be able to join the fold of the tax-paying public. We also have the artisans. We have painters, we have carpenters, we have masons. If you look around, buildings coming up are being put up by these artisans, and payments are made to them. Where is the record on them? Say that in other jurisdictions, a plumber will do work for you and would issue you with a receipt, because that plumber is going to file returns and want to claim any cost he has incurred in repairing your spoiled fitting for which you paid him. So it is all about record keeping and how to nurture them to appreciate the essence of keeping records. Because most of them would come and form associations, will need funding from banks. Today we have microfinance institutions that most of them deal with. So we could collaborate with them, and as part of their savings mobilization, have outfits that would educate them. If you keep proper records, we'll be able to also see your efforts and support you to grow your business. And then you can also pay your due to the state. So it's a collaborative effort of all stakeholders. That is how I see. Because widening the tax net, indeed, I have what I call the formal, informal sector. We have people that we know are in business that they can be identified. But as to their compliance with the tax system, let's take professionals, chartered accountants, lawyers, doctors, architects, engineers. They have firms. They provide services. Have we looked at that sector to see what is their compliance level like? Because, yes, they are formal, but if it comes to tax payment, are they formal or informal? That is the issue we need to look at in a holistic manner, because we have a situation that we analyze to say that we have only 20% of the tax-paying public contributing 80% of the tax revenue, and 80% of the tax-paying contributing only 20%. So that is the 80-20 paradox. So the question is, how do we encourage this 80 to get some of them move into the 20 through this education, nurturing? Indeed, if you even look at the Afrobarometer report of the CDD, it was clear that over 80% of tax-paying public know and appreciate that they need to pay tax. So for me, the education bit is halfway done because they are aware. The question is, why then are you not complying? And then you find in the report they say, well, the tax system appears complex to me. I don't understand. I find some of the officers are corrupt. They demand money from me. I think that it's not convenient. So can we start addressing the issues raised? We can have the revenue say, okay, we challenge ourselves. We have, whether it's perception or
let me hold you there, because I want Richard to answer the question of complexity. So I'll take you to the ports. And I think I find it such a maze of fees on a particular item. You know, there's that fees and this fees and that fees. And then people argue that even if you bring the same items by two different people, they'll end up paying different figures by the time it comes through. I don't know if you've heard that complaint and how you're going to deal with it, Richard.
Come again on that one.
I was asking Richard how, if you import goods to the harbour, they could be the same things, but they are charged differently. And I was just wondering, I have with me in studio Richard Kwenu, who is a principal revenue officer. He actually knows you. If he can answer, how come two items at the ports can have the same thing but have different levies on them?
Well, if you take import duties, you will say same items and different duty. If they are doing the assessment of import duty, the base on which the tax rate will be imposed is the cost, insurance, and freight value, CIF. Now, the cost of an item is defined in the Customs, Excise, and Preventive Service Management Act, PND Law 330, to define what is the cost. The cost is the price of the item from the country of origin. So if they are the same items but from different origins, you will not have the same cost. In the insurance, if something came by sea freight and another by air freight or by road, definitely the insurance cover will not be the same. The freight will not be the same.
So all those factors apply.
But if everything is the same, of course, the tax rate cannot be different. That will be an unfair tax system. But granted that we are looking at the CIF value, if the origin of the items are different, you are not going to have the same CIF value.
Okay, Ali, hold on, Richard. Sometimes, right? So you import a car into the country, and you look at the book value of the car from wherever you bought it, and maybe it's $2,000. But it gets to Ghana and they say, no, this car is maybe $8,000 or $10,000. But if you look in the book value from where it came from, being that it's a used car, the value there is only $2,000. But we seem to have our own value placed on that car.
Yeah. You see, aside of the actual value that we'll have, maybe we'll have the commissioner's value. And what happened is that, it's possible somebody can do under invoicing. You bring a car and maybe customs going through their records know that the car should have cost so much. And then what they are having before them is also of a different value altogether. So at that moment, they will be tempted to use the commissioner's value. You know, what happened is that most often people think that when they bring this good, the custom people, they do comparison. You know, if you bring maybe a vehicle from Europe, they know that maybe vehicle A coming from maybe Germany is this particular of this age, this particular vehicle of this age, this is the value that it should cost. And then you bring the same vehicle from the same country, and then you come with a lower value. Because they know that this is what the value should be, but you have come and then you are quoting.
Do we use the same value book, i.e. the glasses guide or the blue book that the origin of the car would use? I mean, if a car came from the UK, they will value all their used cars with what they call the glasses guide. So do we have a copy of the glasses guide so that we can look in there and say, look, this is a VW 1997 with 60,000 miles, so it should be this? How do you know the value? How do you guess it?
Yes. You know, the custom, what they do, as I was saying, is that they have values per each vehicle that is coming.
From where? Where would they get their values from? Because we don't make the cars.
Yes, we don't.
Yeah, so where do we how do we value it?
We don't, but they have values. We have every item that comes. Custom is supposed to have values for them in their books. Okay, so when you bring a car, custom is supposed to know that this vehicle is to cost so much. And where they are in doubt, they can do cross-checking from the country of origin of the car to make sure that whatever value that they are putting on the car is the right value. Else, you can't do any arbitrary valuation of any car. You have to convince, before you pay any tax, you have to be convinced that this is how much I'm supposed to pay. You can't say that, this is how much you have to pay without the taxpayer or whoever is going to pay the duty being convinced. You have to convince the person. On what basis are you saying that I'm going to pay this? So if you bring in a vehicle, maybe it's costing X value, and then the custom people are saying it is Y, they have to convince you. Why are they saying that it should be Y value? If they are not able to convince you, you can't. Because in most of cases, when you assess somebody, the person cannot object to the assessment. So if you are saying that instead of value X, you are saying it should be value Y, what is the basis? He must be able to convince you before you pay the duty.
Have I still got Ali on the phone?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, Ali, I see, apart from us encouraging people to pay their taxes, there's also stories of where, people go to the tax office and even the procedure to go through to be able to even pay your tax. And then there are stories of people who say, look, I literally had to hand a 10 CD or 20 CD note even for me to pay my taxes. So, there's that issue too. And how are we dealing with that?
Come again on that.
The issue of citizens who have to go through red tape just to be able to pay their tax. They want to pay their tax, but maybe there's no tax office locally, and they get there and, the reception is not very good, i.e., how do we overcome that?
Okay. Thank you. Before I go there, let me add to clarify what Richard was explaining to you. When it comes to valuation of vehicles for tax purposes, there are a lot of factors that go into it. The description, the make and model of the car. Mm-hmm. They can look at the year of manufacture, the engine capacity, number of seats, cubic measurement, weight, and then the HS code. That's the harmonized systems code. So, of course, if they use all these objective indicators and one has a challenge, you can always raise an objection for them to explain or certify for you how they arrived at the value. Now, going to talk about the procedure, the rate tapeism, I see it as one of the challenges that the Ghana Revenue Authority is seeking to address. And I expected to see more of such customer service points. That is one of the highlights of an integrated revenue institution, where you have customer service points, where taxpayers can go to explain their complaints and be assisted. We need a lot of such taxpayer service points. So the idea is that when the taxpayer appears at the revenue office, he should be readily assisted, just as when you enter a bank to transact business. You see the competition. They smile to welcome you and offer you, make you feel comfortable. Can we have the revenue approaching the taxpayer with that kind of zeal? And then the taxpayer will feel welcome to contribute his quota. But if you have challenges of revenue officer not even interested in you coming up and making it difficult for you, the person would surely not show up. So I think that there is a little more education needed in terms of the processes and procedures. That is one area we need to simplify, the forms and all that. I have been wondering, can we not make it very easy for taxpayers to have the account numbers for the GRA to pay in and even bring the pay-in slip rather to the revenue office for a receipt to acknowledge that he has paid his taxes? It will look very easy, because here you are, he goes to the bank to either cash money to come and pay, or when he writes a check, the money would be paid into a bank. So let's make it easy, pay in, especially if it comes to large taxpayers or even taxpayers who are very compliant and we have their records. They could even arrange transfers from their banks into the accounts of the revenue and then bring the transfer advice as evidence of payment. And then the revenue can issue them the receipt. It can simplify, it even reduce the number of people who may be trooping to the revenue because of the closeness of the deadline for filing of their returns and payment of their taxes. They could have done everything from the comfort of their offices and then come with the pay-in slip or the transfer advice that this is evidence, I've paid the taxes, get me a receipt. And if we network, that is the good thing about the computerization. Of course, the payment would have reflected in the accounts of the revenue, and the revenue's bank should be able to tell the revenue that this transaction has gone through. So that if we are computerized, immediately you issue the pay-in slip or the transfer advice and they go into the system, it should reflect that you've paid, and then they issue with the receipt. I think it's one way we can make it more convenient for the taxpayers to comply.
Richard, I mean, some of these ideas that he's putting across are fantastic.
Yes,
I don't know.
I agree totally with him. But I've been somewhere, maybe on the ticket of IRS do this, and what he's saying happens. Taxpayers pay into the bank, and then they come and show their receipt. So it's true, it happens somewhere, and it can easily be done here. And then to add to whatever he said, you know, now with the integration, we have something called taxpayer services. Right. So you have, unlike those days that you get to a tax office and you don't even know where to go, now you have a system. When you get to the tax, any tax office, you get to the premises, you ask, where is the taxpayer services? You are directed, you go there, and then you are offered any assistance that you want. So gradually, maybe the old phase of maybe people will say income tax office is changing now. It won't be drastic, but gradually it's changing. Anybody who has paid visit to any of our offices will now see that things are done differently as opposed to what was in the past. So it is happening. We have the taxpayer services now. When you go, maybe if it's a registration form that you need, or maybe in those days, even when you want the income tax return form, you won't know even who to. But now, the way they've now fashioned things, when you get to any tax office, you are supposed to get to the taxpayer services office first, and then if it's returns that you want or anything that you want, you get that one first before, so that things are. In fact, tax paying should be at the convenience of the taxpayer. The taxpayer shouldn't suffer so much to go through the tax paying system, so that if things are made so comfortable for the taxpayer will be willing to come.
Ali, I mean, can we add it to our school, syllabus as part of civic education or something, so that by the time we come out of school, we seem to want to pay tax rather than being chased to pay it? I don't know. Will that help?
Yes. Yes, to add to what he said, that is exactly what I was trying to. Now they have the taxpayer services centers in all the offices, and what I'm calling for is how they can be vibrant and be known and be more pronounced, so that taxpayers can walk to them and facilitate. Now, on the issue of compliance, he raised compliance, which is very, very good and dear to the success of every revenue institution. And that is the little challenge I have with the way the current integration is being rolled out. You see, we have now the small taxpayers, medium, and then large taxpayers. But when you concentrate those in offices, for example, we have the large taxpayer office at the VAT house in Cycle, and you move files of a taxpayer in, say, Adenta, because he's a large taxpayer making turnover of over 5 million Ghana cedis, and his file is at Cycle. It is not convenient for him, especially when we are not fully computerized, that he can transact with the revenue over the system. He has to physically move. That would be difficult because now his file has been moved from, let's say, the Adenta office or Legon or Medina office. So the officers in these places who used to deal with him, of course he's not on their schedule. They won't go looking for him. The file has been moved to Cycle. The officers there may not even know his location. So currently we have a challenge where the tax revenue is in files which have been moved and the people cannot be directly contacted. So it's difficult to now mop up that revenue. So I was thinking that if we have, say, Legon office, it's a two-story. The ground floor can handle small taxpayers, first floor, medium taxpayers, then the second floor, large taxpayers within Legon. Then that convenience can be achieved. But the physical movement, because I believe the La Paz office, I don't know if Mr. Richard would confirm, is closed down. Thousands of taxpayers in that community have been moved to Achimota, Weja, and some even Spintex Road.
Wow.
The inconvenience would affect revenue mobilization. Now, talking about the tax education, indeed, for me, the first civic responsibility of every citizen is to pay your taxes. So we need to catch them young before they grow. Taxation should be part of our syllabus. Indeed, previously we have civics, in which there will be snipers of all issues that would bother the upbringing of a people.
Ali, 30 seconds, if you round up for me, and then I'll close with Richard in the studio. 30 seconds, round up for me.
Yes, so I'm saying that I agree with you that we should catch them young before they grow. Can we get tax education to start from the basic level? Every child should know that when you earn income, the first thing to do is to pay the due. In fact, that is the training we get in our religious institutions. Pay your tithe, pay your zakat as a Muslim. We can imbibe them in them that, okay, that is the religious bit. Now, the society, give your tax money.
The civic bit.
After all, in the Bible, when Jesus Christ was approached, should we pay taxes? What was his response?
Of course.
Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. So, for me, Jesus Christ is the number one tax-compliant person in the world. Why are we not following his footsteps?
Richard,
if we are worshiping, then let's follow and pay our taxes as we pay our taxes.
Thank you very much, Ali. Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard, are you talking to like the Ghana Education Service or something to help you out in, educating children to know that it's because of the taxes, that's why you have roads, that's why you have something like that? I don't know. Maybe you have a better idea.
Seriously, taxation is not in the syllabus of Ghana Education Service, but you only get to know about
30 seconds if you round up for me.
You get to know about taxation only when you get to the tertiary institutions. So maybe we'll have to take that one up and then see how we can inculcate that maybe idea into the system and find out if the top will take that and then maybe liaise with the Minister of Finance, and then the Minister of Finance will also take it up, liaise with Minister of Education, and see how it can be put into the syllabus of the various secondary schools for them to take that one up. And then coming to what Mr. Ali was saying
10
about...
10 seconds if you round it up for me.
Yeah, was saying about some offices being closed up and then 5 sent away. It is true. So what management had decided is that, as he rightly said, some of the offices will have large taxpayers, medium taxpayers, and then small taxpayers at the same location, said that you will not be having a taxpayer saying that my file has been sent away from where I used to pay my taxes, and for that matter, I won't go and pay my taxes. So that has been taken into consideration.
Thank you very much, Richard Kwenu in the studio, Principal Revenue Officer for GRA, and then joining us, who joined on the phone, was Ali Nachia, who's a tax expert, who also gave a little good insight on how we can at least start tackling our tax problems. But in any case, we need to widen it. And my name is Nanan Sakwa. Thanks for watching. Tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again.